Tuesday. Come on in, pull up a chair because the Daily Dope is in the air. Howdy, 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 gang. Yes, I'm Jeff McAleer, back once again as your host here at The Daily Dope, presented by thegaminggang.com. Welcome aboard. It is Tuesday, December 18th. We are in the heart of the holiday season. So if this is your first time popping in to check out the show, I do want to point out that this is a live stream. It is streamed live on YouTube. I know a vast majority of people do happen to watch the stream after the fact. But if you are happening to be watching live tonight, should point out, I will be hanging out in chat, but I am sharing a pre-recorded interview with my good friend Stephen Buonocore from Stronghold Games. In fact, just finished up the interview with Stephen about an hour and a half ago. So this is a fresh interview. This is not something that's been sitting around for a few days or whatever. No, we just banged this one out a little earlier this afternoon. But if you are watching live and you want to say hello, or maybe you have a question, feel free, chime in. Even though chat is not available on screen, I do keep an eye on it. So yeah, I don't have it on screen because that's one of the ways I kind of keep some of the stranger commenters at bay. But because I do pay attention to chat, I will respond if you chime in. So as I mentioned, my good friend Stephen Buonocore joined me earlier today. We talked about a lot of releases that have just come out, a bunch of stuff that's on the horizon in Q1 2019. We get into a lot of detail about a lot of games. I think we actually talk about a dozen, 13 games total. So lots of different titles that we do talk about. So that's going to be in just a couple of minutes. Pretty much the entire show today is going to be devoted to my interview with Stephen Buonocore because it does run a little bit more than 40 minutes. So did want to point out there's no news today because, as I mentioned, I'm going to kind of devote pretty much the entire show to the interview. But do want to let you know what's cooking on the show for tomorrow and Friday, as well as for Christmas Eve. So, I should say Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. What am I thinking? Today's Tuesday. Wednesday? So, on tomorrow's show, it is Wargame Wednesday, so I am going to unbox and take a first look at Germania Magna from Phalanx Games, released here in the US by Ares Games. This is a card game, but I've heard good things about it. It is a historical game where it's up to 4 players. Each of the players actually leads a Germanic tribe against the Romans. So it's not necessarily cooperative, but all the Germanic tribes are fighting against the Romans, and I believe a little bit amongst each other as well. So that's going to be on tomorrow's show. Thursdays, I always love to look at RPGs on Thursdays. So I am going to crack open and take a deep dive for the first time into the core book for Coriolis, which is from my friends over at Free League Publishing, who I have been actually showing off a lot of their stuff recently. So I have heard great things about this. This is actually published by Modiphius Entertainment, but it is designed and created by Free League. And this is kind of an Arabian Nights in space. So I've heard good things about this, and it does utilize the same like Mutant Year Zero, Tales from the Loop kind of mechanic at its core as well. On Friday's show, I am going to talk about some last-minute gifts that you could pick up for gamers. So quite a few different games that, yeah, probably be a pretty nice present put under the tree, or possibly putting some stockings out there. Do want to point out, Stephen Buonocore talks about some excellent games to give as gifts that are out right now too. So keep that in mind as well. Then on Monday, I am going to reveal my favorite games of 2018 in various different genres, as well as my overall favorite game of 2018. Yes, imagine that, a kind of a best of list that takes place in the actual year that it's a best of. Yeah, that's kind of crazy, right? Because a lot of people out there do their best games of, like, let's say best games of 2017 in June of 2018. And yes, I understand there are games that are just coming out right now. I get it. That's why I'm not necessarily calling this a best of. I'm going to be calling it my favorites of, because I can only talk about games that I have played. All right, so without further ado, as I mentioned, my good friend Stephen Buonocore took some time out today on Skype. We did chat about quite a few things. I have to point out, his mic wasn't all that great. There's a little, not necessarily a buzz, but you can hear what he's saying. I mean, you can understand exactly what Steven's saying, but it's just a little, I don't know if the mic was a little too close to his mouth or something, but had to do the best I could with the audio that I've got available. So, all right, without further ado, let's jump on into my interview with Stephen Buonocore from earlier today. Stephen Buonocore, hey, welcome aboard. Happy holidays to you. I wanted to make sure to have you on the show because I wanted to chat with you a bit about some last-minute gifts, maybe from Stronghold Games. But first off, how's it going? As you plug Coke,
it's going fantastically.
Were you plugging Coca-Cola there for a sec?
What's that?
Were you plugging Coca-Cola?
No, I'm not plugging Coca-Cola. I'm thirsty. Hey, but it is red. Hey, you like the new Spiffy Stronghold shirt here? This is not the
it's pretty sharp
with the collar that you normally see me in. It's a Stronghold.
Isn't that sort of like? I was gonna say it's almost like a soccer jersey there.
That's what people are saying. They saw me online with it, so. It's good talking to you outside of a convention finally, Jeff. Excellent.
I know. Normally we chat at Origins, we chat at Gen Con, and then I have to wait until the next Origins or Gen Con to talk to you again. So I had promised I would have you on the show. Unfortunately, you are not my first guest. You're my second guest. Hey, it only took me almost a year to get guests on, period. So
I'll accept. Two is okay.
Have to keep. Well, it was a Kickstarter that was coming out for a company that I'm pretty tight with, and I was like, okay, fine, I'll interview the designer. Relax, okay, calm down. They do some pretty cool stuff. Ulysses North America. So anyway, we're not talking about Ulysses. We're talking about Stronghold Games.
Let's talk about it.
So you got some stuff that came out recently. You got some stuff that's coming out in Q1. So first off, I wanted to talk a little bit about a game that I believe I'm going to have a chance to take a look at close up and share with my audience. But when we talked about it and I saw a little bit of it at Origins, I was like, wow, this really piqued my interest. And it's Paper Tales. And it's kind of like a fantasy game. And let's talk a little bit about that, because you even have a new expansion that's out for that too.
That's right. Good lead up. Yeah. So Paper Tales, we had it early in the con season, but it actually got released at the end of August. It's a card drafting game. Think Seven Wonders, simultaneous card drafting, pick a card, pass until you get the hand of cards, and then you're going to deploy units in front of you. This is a fantasy civilization game, civilization building game. You're deploying units in front of you. Those units will do a little bit of war against your neighbors, but they're mostly used to generate resources for you and other powers so that you can build buildings. Buildings will give you victory points at the end of the game. And also the really cool mechanic in the game is that the units themselves have to age over time. So
Right.
If you deploy something after one or two game turns, they're like centuries in the game, the unit is going to die. So you constantly have to redeploy. That makes you constantly cycle through units.
We barely knew your cards.
You could, what's that?
I was like, we barely knew you cards. As I'm sniffling, they're gone.
It is a fantasy game, so that there are ways of saving units and things. But for the most part, you want to draft new units because your new units will be better. You'll have more resources to deploy them, and they'll give you more resources. So it's a little bit of an engine building game. Make sure you get those buildings.
Right, I was going to ask, right.
the big victory points at the end. So what's really cool is that we also now have that just got released in October, early October, and that's Paper Tales Beyond the Gates. This expansion,
which bumps the player number too, doesn't it?
This expansion now, instead of a 2 to 5 player, now takes it from 1 to 7 players. So it gives you that big game, but it also gives you an ability to play a 1-player game against the game itself. And we have a special deck for the Lich King fantasy, as we said. So you're going against this creature that the game itself plays, and you would try to defeat it, over the turns of the game. So that's Paper Tales Beyond the Gates. More units, more buildings, and a solo mode, and more players. A lot of expansion into that.
Yeah, that title's done pretty well for you, hasn't it?
It really has. It launched very well. We did a big store splash for it. We did some special promotions with retailers for it. So we went pretty deep in the game, and it is paying off for us. It's done very well. Gorgeous artwork as well.
That was one of the things I had noticed too. Now, granted, I only saw a few of the cards, but I thought, hey, you know what? Really dig this artwork. This is pretty sweet.
Very different. It's that paper. I forgot what it was. Paper craft is the type of artwork, and that includes all things like origami. But this is not that. This is like the kind of art that like paper is laid on top of each other to give it texture and color.
Right.
Like construction paper, when you put it on top of each other, that's what it's supposed to be like, and it's
like South Park animation.
Yeah, it's very. I mean, it's really that kind of.
That's how it originally was. Yeah, kind of. Then you also have a Martin Wallace design, which I'm a big Lovecraftian fan. All I got to say is Cthulhu, I come running. Usually I'm happy. Sometimes I'm not. But you do have AuZtralia, which recently came out. Wasn't that within the past month or so?
Yeah, that was mid-November. AuZtralia. Australia with a Z in it. And this is a Martin Wallace game. We put it in our Great Designer series. I've always wanted to work with Martin. He's a friend of mine in the industry. We just never had a great opportunity, but now we had an opportunity to work together.
I thought this is the first Martin Wallace game that you've actually released, isn't it?
It is.
It's the first time. Yeah, okay, I thought so.
Yeah, it makes me very excited to be doing this big game with him. This is a thematic successor to A Study in Emerald that he did about 3 years ago, and then he re-released the second edition of it maybe a year or so ago. The old ones were defeated in the late 1800s in England, and now they've taken residence in the outback of Australia. And as you start exploring, they are starting to rise up. So in true,
because they were licking their wounds from the.
That's
from
right.
the slap down they got, because now it's jumped. There's a time jump, right? It's like 1930s.
Now it's the 1930s. Very good. Yeah, so it's like 50 years later or something like that. Maybe a little more.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, you're doing more exploration of the world, hitting Australia, and look what happens. They're here. So fight them back here. So this is a Waro, as it's a lot of what Wallace games are. You have to do all of the Euro types of things. You got to gather resources. You got to build rails. You're building ports, and then as the old ones rise up, you've got to build military units and actually fight against them. So there's this semi-co-op element to the game that if you don't go after the old ones, they will win the game and all the players lose. But otherwise, only one player will win the game based on victory points in the end of the game. It is not easy to beat them. So it's something you got to work toward to definitely try to hold them back and to beat them. People have been saying how difficult it is. And if it does get too easy, we have ways of scaling that difficulty even further. So
cool.
AuZtralia by Martin Wallace.
And if I remember correctly, isn't one of your major resources actually time? Because there's like a timing mechanic as you continue to play, various different mythos creatures arise. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, so you don't actually like mine or gather time, but like when you take actions in the game, An action could take 1-time unit, it could take 3-time units, depending on how big it is. So the players and Cthulhu, the game system itself, Cthulhu and Friends, we should say,
Sure.
will be on the same track. Cthulhu and Friends will start waking up at like time period 19, I think it is in the game. As you pass that, and then it depends on who is like last on that time track. That player or Cthulhu and Friends will then take their actions and come against you. So that's how they all stack up like on top of each other. So the person on top who's furthest back, and then the person on top will then take their turn, etc., until everybody has turns. So really, really interesting mechanics in this game. Martin Wallace at his finest, in my opinion.
Excellent. It really does seem like that's another game that's right up my alley. Cool. So let's talk a little bit about a game that I don't know. I think a few people have bought over the years. I don't know, a couple people. One or two, maybe 5. As long as they like fun, I guess they've bought it. We've got Terraforming Mars. So you've got a new expansion. It's Colonies that's out now.
That's right.
And I'm kind of curious what might be beyond that as far as Terraforming Mars. So let's talk about Colonies right now, because I think it's got something to do with colonies.
So at Gen Con, we actually released a Prelude, which is the 3rd expansion. Which people are going crazy over, saying it's like the must-play with expansion, because it kind of speeds up the game. Not for the sake of speeding up, but it kind of takes those first 2 turns that are a little bit slower and just makes them faster, because each corporation ends up drafting a couple of Prelude cards to give you an extra bonus to get your engine going faster. Now in Colonies, the 4th expansion, we are now setting up colonies in the outer moons, on the outer portions of the solar system. In Venus Next, we went inward, and now in Colonies, we go outward into the solar system. So you randomly pick a certain number of locations, moons mostly, of the outer solar system. Randomly pick those to start the game based on the number of players. And on those things, there are 2 new actions you can do. You can go and establish a colony, or you can trade. And these things will end up giving you more resources in the game to end up allowing you to do more things on the planet Mars. It really still is all about terraforming the planet Mars, but this gives you more ways, more actions potential, more ways of getting the resources that you need to do the terraforming process. And that's Terraforming Mars Colonies, launched on November 21st to great accolades, and it, of course, is doing very well for us. And that's a fairly inexpensive add-on for somebody, especially if you're buying your favorite friend who has a fetish for Terraforming Mars. Get them a copy of Colonies and maybe Prelude as well.
I have to say that Elliot Miller, my best friend over at voiceofe.com. About a month ago, I finally got to sit down with him, and he got to play his first game of Terraforming Mars.
His first game.
And he smoked me like a cheap cigar.
I can't believe you waited.
I couldn't believe it. I'm just saying, it was the first time he had played Terraforming Mars. So, and he liked it. Of course, when you win your first game, you usually like a game when you win it the first time.
That's pretty.
But that's okay. I'll get him next time.
Definitely gives
there's a
rewards experience.
Exactly. It was more like he was just lucking out with some of the cards he was pulling for the projects. I was like, what? How did you get that? So what's on the agenda? What's in the future for Terraforming Mars? Because I don't think you're going to wrap this game up anytime soon.
No, well, we hinted originally, this is kind of something I had posted or mentioned, that we were going to do 6 expansions. That number is not in stone. In fact, it might only be 5. That's a first. That's the first time I've said that. So you got a little scoop there. I'll give you another scoop. You want something? You want the name of the 5th expansion?
Go ahead, hit me up.
Turmoil. And everything that word means when human beings come together, to do something together, what happens? Turmoil. So I can't give you much about the expansion because I really know a lot, number one. I actually just got the prototype. I'll be playing it over the holidays, making sure it's in good order.
Okay.
But suffice to say, there'll be global events and things like that make
Wow.
make the interactions between human beings, because you know how easy we get along together, make those
Oh,
interactions
sure. Yeah.
really come out in the game. So that's Terraforming Mars Turmoil, the 5th expansion, coming
Turmoil.
in 2019. That's all I can say about the timing, 2019. And if you have to pin me to it, I'd say late 2019.
I was gonna say we're probably looking at summertime release or maybe fall.
Yeah, I would say it's a fall release.
Okay, sweet. What? No convention. No convention release for Terraforming Mars. What's going on here?
There is Essen. Remember, that's a pretty big convention that we can.
That's true. Yeah. Well, one of these days I'm going to make my way there, but I don't. Yeah, I don't know. All right, so let's talk about another release. I think this just came out in November too. Is Kanban? Is it Kanban or Kanban?
I don't know.
How's it pronounced?
Word. Say it the way you want.
I know exactly. That's why I'm kind of like
Kanban. Most people say Kanban.
Kanban. Okay.
Yeah, and Kanban. This is a re-release of a game we brought out in 2014, I think it was. We sold through 2 print runs of it. It went out of print for a while, so we geared up and we did a new edition. It's called the Drivers Edition, Kanban the Drivers Edition. What we did here with the game is we basically did a component upgrade. So if you own Kanban the original, no reason to buy the game again. I want to be completely honest. There's 3 changes in the game. The biggest change is there's new custom-made wooden cars for the game. So in the previous game, they all look the same. The cars are just different colors. The sports car looks the same as the economy car, looks the same as the...
Sure, right.
Now they actually look like the car you're producing, which is very, very cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's just a component upgrade, and we will have those components available on the website in the future. So if you want them, you can buy them for $10. There's a 2-sided game board, but the second side would only be for beginners. It kind of grayscales and pops out the parts that a beginner might want to focus on because it's a very busy board. And there's also tweaks to the nice Sandra rules, which are the sort of the beginner rules, but some people play with them all the time. They're just less unforgiving, those rules, and there's a tweak in those rules, but you can download those from Board Game Geek. So really, the big change are the new cars in the game. So if you want those, you can get it. And Kanban, just to give a quick overview of that, it's a Vital Lacerda game, another great designer. This got put into our Great Designer series as number 9, in fact, and this is about car production. You have to get projects to then start producing cars, to get get parts, upgrade components to cars, and make sure the demand is there for that particular kind of car, and report back to the board of directors on how you're doing. While Sandra, who's the plant overviewer, the plant manager, makes sure that you're doing the right job, and either rewards you when you're doing a good job or smacks you down and takes things away from you when you're not doing a good job. So it's a fantastic heavy Euro, but emphasis on heavy. This game, not for everyone, and I have got to make sure that people know that. If you want to melt your brain, Vital Lacerda, the designer of the game, who's done many great games, is your man, and Kanban, in my humble opinion, is his pinnacle of design. I think this is the greatest of his game designs, Kanban Drivers Edition.
And just kind of piggyback on what you were talking about as far as the manager. You can have a nice manager, make things a little easier for you, or you can have a mean manager that puts a little more pressure on you as the player. So I thought that was just like in real life.
We've all had those managers that you're either always doing a good job, when you get the slap in the back. Even when you didn't do a good job, it's like, okay, well, try it better next time. Or the other ones that you don't do it, boom, you're in trouble. So you can play it hardcore. You can play it a little softer. Your call. We made both of those modes in the game.
Here's your walking papers. You're done. You're out of here. After designing that DeLorean, you're out of here.
Before we move to the 2019 releases, which I know you want to go to next, I want to mention 2 small releases that just came out. They're both by Freedom and Freeze, and they're both lower price points. So all these games, basically, we're talking about what kind of higher price points. But if you want a nice stuffer, maybe a small gift to yourself for the holidays, we all take care of everybody else. Maybe take care of yourself too, but give yourself a small gift. We've got Fortune and Fool. Fortune is number 4 in the Fast Forward series by Freedom and Freeze. Very F-centric.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say the names of his games fast enough, and they hurt me when I say them. So we had Fear, Fortress, Flee, and now Fortune in the Fast Forward series. And all of these games are games you play without reading rule books. It's a $20 game. In the box, it's a 5x5. It's got a small form factor box. Inside, there's an oversized deck of cards, like that tarot-sized deck of cards. And you basically have one side of the deck says, turn it over, this is the wrong side. The other side says, start playing the game by getting together 2 to 5 players, whatever the player count is.
Yeah.
Turn over this card. The game system tells you how to play the game from the first couple of cards, and the game will evolve over time. The game will change itself. It will add a rule, it'll take a rule out, gradually and slowly over time, so it gets more and more gamerly and more interesting as time goes on. These games are so wonderful for non-gamers too, because you don't have to know a crap ton of rules. You just have to know
Sure, right. Rules. You're going to learn as you're playing.
You play this with your family. Some of them, like Flee, which is the third one, which is a co-op game. That's a really brain-burny co-op. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend that one for your family Christmas or holiday dinners. But the first game, Fear, and this one, Fortune, and Fortress as well. These are easily 8+, 10+ style games, and you can play with anybody as long as they can read a few rules on the cards that come out and on the cards they have in their hand. And simple and fast, and every one of them is completely different. One's a hand management game, one is a castle defense game, one is co-op, as I mentioned, and Fortune is sort of like set collection game. It never can get away.
Okay.
Of course, you're gonna see these games, as they play out. It's always interesting to see how they play out. You'll play each one of these games. You'll play them 10, 15 times before you play through the entire game system, and then you can reset. Or you can reset at any point in some circumstances. So they're very flexible games that you can replay again and again, even though you've seen them all. So that's the Fast Forward series. Number 4, Fortune by Freedom and Freeze.
I was going to say, you've got some more Friedrich Freeze F titles coming in 2019. In fact, for some reason, the letter F is really, really prominently displayed in 2019 for Stronghold.
I do. They're not all Freedom in Games, which is kind of...
No, they're not.
I'll just quickly mention Fool, because it's also a release that literally came out this past week. Fool is a trick-taking card game by Freedom and Freeze. One that's really interesting because it plays 4 to 8 players. It's a re-release of an older game he had called Foppen, but he did some mechanics on it and now extends it up to 8 players. And that's only a $15 game, a really nice stocking stuffer, and that's Fool by Freedom and Freeze. So
now I think it's unusual, Stephen. We never see you and Friedrich in the same place at the same time. You're always talking about Friedrich Freeze here. Maybe you're one and the same person. No.
Friedemann, not Friedrich Freeze. Friedemann Freeze.
But, that's right. It's Friedrich.
But guess what?
Friedemann.
He's not smart enough for Friedemann Freeze. I'm going to tell you that right now. He's a genius of game design, and I can't hold a candle to him. So I give him huge props. But yeah, so the next 3 games that I was going to talk about for 2019 all start with the letter F.
That's right.
2 of them are Freedom in Games, but let's start with the one that's not a Freedom and Freeze game, and that's Forum Trajanum. And this is a Stefan Feld game. Now, Feld is one of the great designers as well. We've had one of his games already. That was Jorvik 3 years ago in our catalog. So that game went into the Great Designer series. In Forum Trajanum, this is a heavier Euro again, where you are building you're building your own colonnade, which is a little bit of part of the Roman Empire outside of Rome itself. You're
like a colony almost.
Official. You're building that, but you're also trying to help him build the Forum Trajanum inside of Rome. So you've got to do both of those tasks, and you're rewarded greatly if you do them. A lot of player interaction in this heavy Euro, where you're going to get these these chits every turn. You got to select one for yourself and pass the other one on that the other player is going to get. And you're going to say, oh no, if I give him that, he's going to be able to do that, but I really need this one. So you're going to have these hard choices to make on which actions you're going to be able to take each turn, and which you're going to have to pass over to create your colonnade, as well as to help build the Forum Trajanum for Emperor Trajan. It's set in the same timeline as that original game that Phil did a while ago called Trajan itself.
Now, which I believe it's like 1st century AD is that period. I'm really into ancient history, so that's why I was like, yeah, this one looks pretty interesting. Yes. Even though that is a pretty peaceful period of the Roman Empire when Trajan was emperor. But yeah, that seems pretty interesting because, you know, not only are you trying to build your colony, essentially, you also have to kind of kick in tribute so that Trajan can build his forum and other. He did a lot of beautification of Rome.
That's exactly.
So yeah, pretty sweet.
And it's really well done. I think, being biased as I am, I think this is one of Feld's really great, very mature designs. We worked with the primary publisher on this. Is a new partner of ours, Hook, out in Germany. And we worked basically a year with them, not quite, but we saw this game at Essen a year before that, and we thought this was very interesting. And we helped develop this game with them over the course of the past year and got it out just in time to show it off at Essen this year. We had it at Essen this year, and now it's going to go to wide release at the end of January, this coming January, of course. So on January 23rd, I believe, is the date that this game comes out.
Sweet.
Cool. And it is it's already gotten some great notoriety out of Essen, and the reviewers that we were able to get some pre-release copies. So we got them to the guys who like the biggest and the ladies that like the biggest kind of heavy games. And it's gotten some great press out of them. Man vs. Meeple, for instance, they're big heavy gamers, and they thought this was a home run. So real happy about the accolades it's gotten so far.
I saw some images of the components. They look pretty sharp. Looked like it had a nice table presence.
It does. It really does. It looks really interesting on the table as you're physically building, not in height or anything, but you physically have your game board, and you're actually turning over things to show the various pieces of your colonnade being done, and then the various pieces of the forum being built as well. So very interesting. Very good mechanics. Stefan Feld at his best.
And the F's keep on rolling. So let's talk about fine sand, because that's what I tend to get in my Christmas stocking. I don't get coal. I get fine sand.
I'm so sorry for you. Well, you're not a good boy. I mean, I know you. So you can't. You have to be good. Naughty or nice.
I know. What can I tell you? But I'll tell you what. So I get some fine sand one day of the year. I get to be naughty all the rest of the time. So it's better that way.
So Fine Sand is a game which is also a Fable game, like Fabled Fruit. Now, if you remember Fabled Fruit that we released 2 years ago, and then we released the expansion last year, which was called Fabled Fruit, the Lime expansion. It's a Fable game, which means that there are going to be cards that are cut out at the beginning of the game. You're going to see a part of the game system right in front of you. So there'll be a percentage of it that is open and exposed, and you'll see those. And then as you play the game, all of a sudden, new cards come into the game. The basic game here is it's deck deconstruction. It's got a silly theme. You're all building these epic sand castles on the beach. So this huge sand castle competition, and as you're doing that, you're scoring victory points for the types of castles that you're constructing, but new things come out, and you've got to try to get rid of bad cards from your hand and streamline your deck. So it's not deck building, it's deck deconstruction.
Right.
And Friedemann really knows how to use great card play in a very interesting way. He certainly did that with Fabled Fruit originally. This is now a spiritual successor in the Fabled game line that we created with Fabled Fruit, and that's Fine Sand. This is a late February release by Stronghold Games.
And of course, begins with an F. So I mean, it's right there, right in line with everything else.
We couldn't get two
And then
Fs, so we went with fine sand. Has to have one F in it.
and well, yeah, I mean, if it's sand castles,
Yeah.
can't have another F there.
Silly little fun fact. Freedom and Freeze's company is called 2F Spiele, okay? 2F Games.
Right.
His policy is that all game boxes must be green. He has green hair. And all of his titles of all of his games must start with an F.
Right.
He does not impose the F titles on his partners like Stronghold Games. We don't have to, but we want to because it's fun. We want to be part of that.
Sure.
So his most famous game, which came out much before Stronghold Games even, was Power Grid. But in German, that's Funkenschlag. Of course, all German words are long and hard to pronounce. So there's an example where Rio Grande, which owns the rights to print Power Grid, they did not choose to use an F word. Figure out what they would use. What would you use for Power Grid? I don't know. You would say, I don't know. I don't know. No, I don't know what you would say to make that into an F word anyway. Power Grid, great word. They did it correctly. Anyway, let's get into the last of the Freedom and Freeze games. The last game we're going to talk about.
Right. So we've got Futuropia, which was an excellent cartoon on Fox. I loved Matt Groening's Futuropia. That was the best.
That's not the same thing. No.
Oh wait, that's Futurama.
So
Futurama.
Yeah, Futuropia is a combination of future and utopia. So what goes on in Futuropia is that you are trying to live the life of your dreams in a utopian society where being unemployed...
Nobody has to work.
Where being unemployed or being not employed, not doing work, is a goal that you might have. Instead, playing music, going to the beach, the things that we kind of rather do with our lives. So what you do in Futuropia is you build robots to go work the factories, to create all the goods, that then build the housing, to build housing where people can live in fine housing and then do the things that they want to do in life. Isn't that, I mean, it's a lovely thought. Unfortunately,
until we have to bow down to our robot masters, I'm sure everything's great.
Let's leave artificial intelligence out of this. I mean, yes.
I've seen Terminator. Come on.
I've seen Terminator, and there's been some predictions about that. But anyway, in the utopian world of Futuropia, you're trying to put robots to do the work. Hey, if you want to work, you can work. That's an option as well. And in fact, there are people that always do have to work because you won't have enough robots. You have to have a certain human population to take care of robots too. So some people will work, some people will go relax. There'll be all kinds of things, but you'll be scoring victory points in any good Euro game. It's basically a mid to heavyweight Euro game where you are employing your robots to go do that work, to get resources to go create your housing for your people, and that is Futuropia. This game has also had some really nice buzz coming out. It was high on the SN release list, on the hotness on BGG on the SN release list. We're going to try to bring this one out for a late February release.
Nice. I think I find it interesting that you had mentioned it was medium to heavy, because just taking a peek at it, and granted there weren't tons and tons of photographs, because I shared the news about this coming out a while ago, and it just didn't look like it was going to be a heavy Euro. So I find it interesting.
It's that that kind of weight of the the big box Freedom games where they've got a pretty big amount of meat on them. So I call it mid heavy. I would think this game is a bit harder than like AuZtralia. AuZtralia I think is firmly a medium weight, easy to grok game once you get that. The flow of the game. There's a lot of moving parts in AuZtralia. To do it all right is going to take a while. Here, I think this is a little more like that Power Grid. You got to do some math. You got to kind of figure out how you're going to do this, and this. Not going to be.
But math is hard.
Math is hard. It's hard.
Math is hard.
not going to be able
What
to Trajanum.
I gotta bust out my smartphone calculator to play this game. Come on.
Well, then go for the letter games, Jeff. I'm sorry.
I'm teasing. I'm into the heavy stuff. I'm in the heavy games. I am not. That's why I never sit there and go, hey, Stephen, how about if I do a review for one of the lighter games? Because for one, it's not my bag of tricks, and that's really not my audience either. Sort of like, wow, just doing a review of that game? Oh, okay. I don't know why.
Would you like it?
So what else is cooking? Anything? Pardon me?
Would you like
whatever you
look at your copy of
whatever you want to send along is always fine. Actually, that Kanban or whatever, that's the one that also looks really interesting. But what else you got cooking?
That's the heaviest of the heavy, my friend. But yeah, I mean, if that's the kind of thing you like, just send Pauline a note. We'll get that out to you.
Okay. Hey, sweet. That's not why I mentioned the
you can beg it.
The lighter stuff. No, not bad. I'm sorry, we're having a problem with the audio all through this. What else is there that's on the horizon that you might want to share?
We could keep going later and later in the year, but really we're trying to promote the current stuff that just came out and the stuff.
Sure, right.
That is right on the immediate horizon. We've got an expansion for Fields of Green coming out very soon. Fields of Green.
Okay.
There. That was a great card drafting game we did 3 years ago with our Tipia games. We got one for Kitchen Rush, an expansion for Kitchen Rush called Piece of...
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, right.
It's
desserts. Adds the desserts to it.
And we brought one out. Flamme Rouge. That game continues to kill it for us. We've had an expansion already for that one called Peloton. And now Meteo is going to be coming out in the first quarter as well.
Okay.
We have another game by Sophia Wagner called The Boldest. She did Noria last year, that big wheel building game. And now
I reviewed that.
Boldest, which is gorgeous artwork by Max Prentice. If you're into a game where you've got to go out and fight some creatures to become the champion of the realm, it's not a cooperative game. You got to become the greatest champion of the realm. Check out The Boldest. It's all via card play. Very interesting mechanics. CO2, you want heavy, another Vitalis. Second Chance is coming out too, so that's going to be...
But it's got to be thematic too. I like heavy and thematic.
There you go, very thematic.
Yeah, I'm one of these, I'm a game that I like to be able to have to plan ahead and then watch my master plan come to fruition or go completely up in smoke. That's how I like to play it. So my last question I've got for you is, I told you, Elliot smoked me like a cheap cigar the first time playing Terraforming Mars. But last question I've got for you, Stephen, is what is a game that you feel just pick one title from Stronghold that you think deserves a little bit more love and you'd like to see under everybody's tree this year?
Oof, wow, just the one title that...
just one. You only get one. You talked about enough games already. You'll get one more.
You know what? I'm going to go back to earlier in 2018 when we released
that's cool.
Memoarrr, and that was a Origins timeframe release for us.
Isn't that a memory game with like little animal pirates? Isn't that it?
It is absolutely a family weight game where your kids down to age 6, possibly younger, will beat you at, and you'll not even have to throw the game. Some parents play, they want to give the kids a chance, so they don't play as hard. Some parents play like, oh no, you got to work to beat me kind of thing.
That's how I look at it. When I play kids,
Not going to value the two, but in Memoarrr is a memory game, and most gamers say, oh no, memory is horrible. Well, we're older, some of us much older, so we don't have the memory of some kind of a 6 or 8-year-old. And it's a very light memory game. It's a 5x5 grid in front of you. In the beginning of the game, 3 of the creatures that are kind of in front of you, and each person knows 3 of the creatures in front of them. There's 5 different creatures, and they're at 5 different locations or terrains, like on the beach. So there could be a penguin on the beach, a walrus in the water. There's all these combinations of these 5 terrains and 5 creatures, and you got to match either like concentration. One of them gets turned over. You got to find either the creature or the terrain someplace else. If you do, you're good. Then the next person has to do the same, and the next person. Once you're out for that round only. Last person in the round gets a piece of gold. Most gold at the end of the game, which is going to be after about 5 rounds or so, wins the game. Kids are great at this. They love the memory element. B, they love the artwork. They're really family-friendly, little kind of piratey animals.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was pretty sure it's got like a pirate art theme to it with the animals.
Exactly. That's exactly right. The game is $14.95. Great stocking stuffer, a great little gift for the young ones, your nieces, your nephews, your friends. Memoarrr, check it out. You can have it before Christmas if you order it real quick.
Sweet. All right. Well, Stephen, I'll tell you what. You have got loads and loads that's out right now. It's coming on the horizon, and I guarantee come Q2 of 2019, you're going to have a bunch of stuff we're going to be talking about then, too.
There'll be much more stuff, and I want to give a quick mention of, the new merger with Indie Boards and Cards has given us tons of possibilities of things we can do now. Indie Boards and Cards is going to have lots of games, interesting games. They do far less games than Stronghold does, but right on the horizon for them is Aeon's End. Legacy is coming out soon. One of the things that the combined company is going to be able to do now is going to be able to bring some of our major releases to, drumroll, Kickstarter. I have stayed away from that for the most part over time.
Right.
Kickstarter now will become part of a portion of some of the big releases that we do to bring highlight to them. Kickstarter, in the end, is a great marketing tool. Yeah, we don't need the money to make the games, which certainly what Kickstarter did. But if you look at the companies that are putting games on Kickstarter, it only makes sense if a company like CMON, which is the second biggest company in the industry, is constantly putting games on Kickstarter.
Oh, yeah. If they almost all go to Kickstarter for them.
So it's a big marketing event for us. And Indie, with all their experience, they do them right. And they've shown that games that are done on Kickstarter end up doing better in the hobby distribution market in the end. So that's a great thing to know. So we'll put them there. People will get the games, during the Kickstarter release first, and then of course we'll release the games into distribution. So if you don't like Kickstarter, don't worry, you're still going to be able to get the games and all the parts of the games.
Right.
That we're done. I don't believe in exclusivity. I don't like that kind of stuff. So you get all the parts of it done, later if you need it. Or you'll get the game, a retail version of the game as well later on. So watch for some other major releases from Stronghold throughout the year done on Kickstarter. But obviously, when we do something like, and let's take a quick look at what we did this year, by the end of the year, we will have done 23 releases in total. When we do that many releases, most of these games are still going to go through your standard distribution model.
Right, exactly.
So from Stronghold Games website, we'll get them from your friendly local or friendly online game store when they come out.
Any other last thoughts you want to share, Stephen?
I'm dying here, Jeff.
By Coca-Cola?
I came back from Disney last week with con crud. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, or mouse crud, as I'm calling it as a joke. But no, I think we've covered it.
Excellent.
Good.
Stephen Buonocore, thanks for popping by to talk all things Stronghold Games, and enjoy the holiday season.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it. Come visit us at strongholdgames.com or watch us on Twitter and Facebook. We're very interactive, and I answer all the stuff myself. So
that's right. Say yeah. All you got to do is kind of flag Stronghold Games on Twitter, and boom, Stephen's like commenting, answering right back. All right, take care, my friend. All right, so once again, a big thank you to my friend Stephen Buonocore from Stronghold Games, taking some time out this afternoon and being kind of under the weather at the same time, and sharing all things Stronghold for the holiday season. All right, so that is it for today's day, for today's show, for today's day. Jeez. That's what happens when I'm sitting there watching an interview I've seen already, just to make sure I could pop in some little news pieces, little images kind of floating past, kind of zoning out while I was doing that. Anyway, that is it for today's show. I will be back tomorrow for War Game Wednesday. I'll be unboxing and taking a first look at Germania Magna from Phalanx Games, I should say, which is released by Ares Games here in the US. So, as I like to always point out, if you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday night. I'll be back tomorrow. And as always, thank you very, very much for watching. Thanks again for watching The Daily Dope, presented by The Gaming Gang. If you like this episode, be sure to give it a quick thumbs up. And if you dig the channel, please subscribe. If you'd like to check out our previous episode, click right here. And if you want to check out a somewhat randomly selected episode, give a click right down here. It'll be like opening a box of Cracker Jacks. You just don't know what you'll get. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'm Jeff McAleer.